Hello and welcome. In this series, I'll be showing you how to model a sci-fi robot in Blender 2.9. So this is part 1 where we will be modeling the head, body and arms. In part 2, we'll be modeling the hip, torso and legs. In part 3, we'll be adding all the materials. And in the final part, we will be doing all the rigging and animation. So let's get started. To start with, what I'll do is to select the camera and the light and move them to a new collection by pressing M and new collection. You can name the collection whatever you want, but I'll just name it props. Just collapse the collection in the outline and hide it from the viewport by unchecking the checkbox next to the collection. So to start with the body, delete the default cube and add in a UV sphere by pressing Shift A and then clicking on UV sphere. Then move it up on the Z-axis by pressing G and C, and then scale it up by pressing S and then type 1.5 on your numpad. And now you can add a subdivision surface modifier to the sphere. For the next step, go into edit mode, and before we continue, you will need to enable an add-on for Blender. It comes pre-installed with Blender, and to enable it, go to the edit tab on top and click on preferences. Under add-on, search for loop tools and enable it. This add-on allows you to turn square shapes into circles, which will be very useful for us now. When that's done, you will want to go into face selection mode by pressing 3 on your keyboard and select these faces by simply clicking on the first and then shift clicking on the rest. I'll just select the row above and deselect the lowest row. You can deselect faces by shift clicking on them. When you have selected the correct faces, right-click anywhere in the 3D viewport and under Loop Tools, select Circle. That'll turn the selected face into a circle. Now you want to press E and extrude the faces slightly inwards. Then you want to set the transformation orientation to normal and scale the faces on the Z-axis and type 0 on your keyboard, which will make the faces completely flat. To make the socket look a bit nicer, you can bevel the edges around it by turning the X-ray view on and selecting the edges around by pressing Alt left clicking and then Alt Shift left clicking. When you have selected all of the edges, press Ctrl B and add a small bevel. Now do the same thing to the outer edge loop. And that's the socket for the head done. And for the arm sockets, the process is very similar. Now for the arm sockets, go into edit mode again and then select these faces right here. And then right click under the loop tools and click circle. Now do the exact same thing to the other side. After that's done, select both circles and press Alt E and then select extrude faces along normals and then extrude them slightly inwards. Now change the median point to individual origins and scale the faces on the Z-axis and type 0. That will make the faces completely flat. After that, you can adjust the sockets as you like, move them a bit inwards or outwards. I'll just move them a bit inwards, that looks a bit nice. Then you can bevel the inner and outer edges like before. I'll just speed this up as you have already watched me do this. For the head, add a sphere. I'll just enable this moving tool as I'm more comfortable using this. And move it up to the socket and scale it down so it fits. Then move it into the body so only half of the sphere is visible. And add a subdivision surface modifier to make it look a bit more smooth. For the eyes, go into front view by pressing 3 on your numpad and add in a cylinder. Rotate the cylinder on the Y-axis by 90 degrees so the top is facing the front. Move the cylinder up to the face and scale it down so it fits on the face. And make sure to set the transformation orientation to global again. Then go to the side and scale the cylinder on the x-axis to make it go into the face. Now add a subdivision surface modifier and add 2 loop cuts, one in the front and back. To add some depth to the eye, select the front face and insert it by pressing I. Then extrude it inwards by pressing E and then double pressing Z to extrude it on the normal Z axis. While the face is selected, you can just bevel it so it looks a bit nicer. And don't forget to bevel the 2 outer edge loops. Now go to top view by pressing 7 on your numpad and duplicate the eye by pressing Shift D. And then by pressing Y, move it on the Y axis. And then you can adjust the eyes as you like. And that's basically your head and eyes done. For the arm, start by adding a UV sphere. Then rotate it on the x-axis by 90 degrees so the tip of the sphere is pointing towards the side. Then move it up and scale it down so that most of the sphere is visible, but there's still a bit of the sphere inside the body. I'll just move it a bit inwards and scale it a bit down so it roughly fits inside of the socket. Next, tap into edit mode and go into vertex selection mode and select the tip of the sphere. Then hold down Ctrl, press plus on your numpad, which will select more edge loops around that vertex. Then you want to tap plus 3 times while holding down Ctrl. Press E to extrude the selected part and type 1 and press enter. And then scale the faces on the normal Z axis by typing 0. That will make the faces completely flat. And the arm looks a bit plain right now, so let's add a cool design. Tap into edit mode and add 2 loop cuts and move one of the edge loops closer by selecting it and double pressing G and then just dragging it. Selecting the whole edge loop and then these few vertices and then select these other ones right here, like shown. Now bevel the selected vertices with only 1 cut and by pressing Alt E, extrude all the faces along the normals. You can rotate the arm so the design faces the camera, but that's your choice. Now go to edit mode and subdivide the arm. That way it looks better when you add the subdivision surface modifier. Now just go ahead and add a subdivision surface modifier to it. For the joint, add a cylinder, then move it up near the arm and scale it down until it's roughly the size of what you can see right here. Now select the joint and tap into edit mode. Then select these 8 faces right here and insert the faces a tiny bit and then extrude them inwards towards the arm. Now make them look a bit cooler by selecting the top and bottom edge loops and then bevel them so they look a bit more round. Then select the top and the bottom face and insert them and then extrude them along normals and then repeat this process as many times as you like. I'll just show you how I did it right now. You can select the inner edge loops and then just bevel them to make it look a bit nicer. Then select the outer edge loops and on both sides and bevel them as well. For the upper arm, start by adding a cylinder and move it up and then rotate on the x-axis by 90 degrees so the arm faces the same direction as the upper arm. Now move it up and scale it down so like the size of the cylinder is the same as the size of the upper arm and then move it to the right side of the joint that we just made. So the lower arm is basically a cylinder with a curved shape added to it. So to achieve that, you want to go into edit mode by pressing tab on your keyboard and then adding an edge loop to the cylinder. And then scale it up quite a bit and then press Ctrl B to bevel the mesh and add quite a few edge loops. And that results in this curved shape that you're seeing right now. Okay, So now to the joint that connects the upper and the lower arm. So that's actually going to be quite easy as we already have it part of the joint. So I'm just going to select this joint and scale down a bit on the Z-axis. Then I'm going to move it lower arm a bit closer. After, duplicate the joint that we have already created by pressing Shift D and then move it up a bit. Then I'm going to rotate it on the Z-axis by 180 degrees, which will like rotate it, make it go exactly opposite to the already existing joint. And then I'm gonna duplicate it once more and place it on the underside of the middle joint. Then I'm gonna select all of them and just scale them down so it fits inside both of the arm joints. And yeah, that's basically your joint all done there. Now the joint looks good, but like it's sticking into the arm and like nothingness. So we should make a socket for the joints inside of both sides of the arms. So to do that, go into edit mode while selecting the lower arm, and then select this face that's facing the joints, and then insert it and then extrude it inwards. Do the same thing for the upper arm, but this time we have applied the subdivision surface modifier and like we have these circles here instead of like just one face. So we're gonna do the same trick as we did before by selecting the middle vertex and then pressing Ctrl and then plus on your numpad. So like select almost all of the faces, and then I'm gonna extrude them inwards. Then select the lower arm and then add a subdivision surface modifier to it. And don't forget to go into edit mode again and then beveling the two edges right here so it looks a bit nicer. So like now's the part where you start to organize your scene a bit. So just like select all of your objects one by one and then just rename them in the outliner at the top right hand corner. I'm just going to speed this process up as it's quite boring just watching me select objects and then renaming it. So now to the hand. For the hand, start by adding in a cube to the 3D viewport. Then move it up until it's like at end of your lower arm. Then scale it down so it's roughly the size of what you see right now. Remember to move the cube up on the Z-axis, by the way. I'll just also scale it down on the Z-axis because like a palm is not like super thick. Now add 2 loop cuts horizontally and a loop cut vertically. Now I want to go into top view by pressing 7 and then turn on X-ray by going into edit mode and then vertex selection mode, and then by just like moving these vertices down by box clicking so you're also selecting like the vertices below, then just like selecting them one by one and then just moving them down on the y-axis a bit. I like to like enable the moving tool as it's like quite easier to like handle, but that's obviously your choice. So and then you can also like select the side vertices at the side of your palm and then also move them a bit outwards. And after that you can turn off X-ray view and select all the faces by pressing A and then right click and then click subdivide. Subdivide to mesh 3 times and now exit edit mode. Then select the hand and press Ctrl A and then apply all transforms, which will like prevent all sorts of weird stuff from happening. Now go back into edit mode and select these faces right here and turn them into a circle by clicking on the loop tools and then click circle. Now go onto the top view by pressing 7 and then from the top view just rotate the circle a bit and like move it a bit outwards and stuff because this will like be the socket for a thumb. So just move it where you'll think like a thumb would stick out normally. Then add a subdivision surface modifier to the cube and make it look a bit nicer. Now go into edit mode again and then select the front of your palm and then just extrude this part a bit inwards. Now isolate your object by pressing the slash button on your keyboard and then insert the faces I've shown right here. And then right click and then under loop tools, click circle. Then scale the circle down a bit so it like fits inside of the whole square. Now select the circle and extrude it inwards and do the same thing to the thumb socket that we have created. But make sure to inset the thumb socket first because otherwise it just won't look good. my origin of the object is like at the world origin, so I'm just going to right click in object mode and then click under origin and then set origin to geometry, so it's in the middle of the object. Now move it a bit outwards and then move the 3D cursor into the circle that you have created in the center of the palm, and by simply shift and right clicking you will move the 3D cursor, which will like determine where your new objects are like added when we add them into our scene. Now when you've done that, just add in a UV sphere and scale it down so it like fits the size of the circle that you've created. You can also select the two objects and isolate them by pressing slash, and now make them fit more perfectly. Now move both objects closer to the upper arm, but before we do that, I'm gonna go into edit mode of the lower arm, and I'm gonna insert this face right here, extrude it inwards, insert again and extrude it outwards, and insert, extrude it inwards again. That gives like this cool effect for the hand socket. And yeah, now just move the hand and socket into the arm so that it matches. Now to the fingers. So the first thing you want to do is to go to the front of your hand, like the part that we extruded inwards earlier, and then place your 3D cursor right here. Then press Shift A and add in a UV sphere, and I'll just scale it down so it like roughly matches the size of like this square right here. And the finger's really simple, it's just a UV sphere and then a cube. And so now just scale the cube down so it's like roughly the same size as the diameter of the sphere, maybe a bit bigger. And then move it together so like almost half of the sphere is inside of the cube, like so. Now just scale the cube like up on the x-axis so it's like a bit longer, and then you can go to front view, and like that can help visualize how long your finger is. Now move it around until the sphere is centralized. Now you can go into edit mode and select the front edge loop of the fingertip and just bevel it to like create this like cool effect. And then you can do the same thing for the back edge right here, but not as much as the front one. And once that's done, go back into object mode, and that's 1/3 of one finger done. So now go ahead and place the finger back into like the socket that we have in the hand. Then duplicate the sphere and the cube that we have right here, and then place it on top of the already existing finger joint that we have. Duplicate the finger joint once more, and then place it on top of the already duplicated finger part. And that's one finger done. Right now I'm just going to select all 3 of the finger cubes and go into edit mode and scale them down so like on the x-axis by using individual origins. So they look a bit smaller, because right now like the first thing I notice is like the finger is quite huge for like the robot we're making. So now when that's done, go back into object mode, press Shift D and duplicate like the whole finger, including the cube and the spheres, and then move them to like the middle section of our palm, and then do it once more for the left side finger. And it can help to like set the transformation orientation to normal, because like you can move it which way it faces. Now just rotate it until you like the way it's rotated. And the first thing I noticed is like the cubes of the fingers are a bit off, like they're not perfectly in line. So I'm just gonna like move the cubes a bit more in line so it looks a bit better. Now that that's done, you can select like two joints of any finger that you want and duplicate it over to the thumb socket that we have. And now just like rotate it and move it until you think that it's fitting how a normal thumb would. And yeah, that's basically your hand done. So now your whole arm and hand is done. So Like, we could do it on the other side as well, the exact same thing we did. Like, that's quite a waste of our like time. And we can like do it really simply by just like mirroring it over to the other side. So to do that, you want to select like your whole arm and hand. Then you want to duplicate it by pressing Shift D and then right clicking, so that will like cancel its movement. And then you want to go under Object and then Mirror, and then click Y Global, which will like mirror it on the Y global axis. And when that's done, then just move the whole arm over to the other socket for the arm that we have. And yeah, that's basically your arm, head, and body done for Megaref. So I really do hope that you enjoyed it. If you found it helpful, make sure to drop a like, as that will help other people find this video. The next part will be out as soon as possible, and if it's already out, it will be on your screen right now. So I'll catch you in the next one.